The Auburn Tigers are back home inside of Neville Arena to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Let's talk about it right here inside the town.
The Auburn Express. You are now listening to the War Report Longtown Podcast. With your boy Ike Jones.
You are inside of Lobtown, part of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. We are here talking Auburn versus Arkansas, going down inside of Neville Arena. Hopefully everybody is ready for some good basketball. Let's talk about this game a little bit. If you are joining us for the first time, make sure you go ahead and share this content with somebody. Appreciate that very much. But Auburn and Arkansas set to tip off inside of Neville Arena. Arkansas 15-10 on the season, 4-8 in conference. Of course, Auburn is 23-2, 11-1 in conference. That sole loss coming last time that Auburn was at home inside of Neville Arena versus Florida. And honestly, a team in Arkansas that is built very similarly to Florida in like just the composition of their players. Now, they don't play in the same style, but built very similarly. Tall, athletic, and wants to get up and down the floor. Not as good a three-point shooting team. Well, I'm not going to say that this is not the same type of Florida team as Florida, just the way that they play, but they have that level of athleticism to be able to go in and bother Auburn with some of the things that they do. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this Arkansas Razorback team, coached by Calipari in his first season in Arkansas. It's been mixed results. Of course, you heard the record there in conference, but they're a team that has, as of late, been playing fairly well, right? When you look at the last 5-6 games, right, since they won their first conference game, which was against Georgia, they have only lost 3 games. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're 7. They've won 4 of their last 7, which is, slightly above 500. But they have wins in conference versus Georgia, Kentucky on the road, Texas on the road, and then at home versus LSU, most recent win for them a couple of games ago. When you look at this team, again, I talked about the height. They're a team that is, guards are 6'4" and above since the injury, of course, to one of their major guards, their Boogie Flan, who was 6'2", but they're 6'4" and above from just from guards on up, going all the way up to Big Z there, who is 7'2". So they have, again, some length there for their team. And that is going to be something that's going to play into how they do defensively. Recently, they have, the win. They did win in non-con versus Michigan. So, it's a team that can go and play in tough environments and get tough wins. But they play teams tough because of all of the athleticism that they have, and they make it difficult in the paint with the length that they have blocking shots. They are one of the best shot blocking teams in the conference. In fact, they are 3rd in block percentage in the conference so far during conference play. And that number gets even, more auspicious when they're on the road. For whatever reason, when they're away from home, they're blocking shots at the highest rate of any team in the conference right now. And they force the lowest percentage of 2-pointers, right? So they're a team that plays well inside the paint with their length, making it tough for you to get 2s around the rim, blocking shots, altering shots. They do an excellent job of that. And so that's going to be a big difference from some of the teams that Auburn has played recently, or really in the conference, is Auburn's going to struggle to score around the rim if Arkansas is playing defense, again, with all of the length and athleticism that they have. It's going to be difficult to get shots around the rim. So they're going to have to figure out a way to utilize the strengths that they have, which is scoring in the paint, versus a defense that doesn't allow that a lot, right? So we're going to be looking at that clash of things right there specifically. Now, again, similarly to Florida, they play tough inside the paint as far as blocking shots. I don't think just from looking at the film, that this is nearly as physical a team as Florida, though, right? So they win with athleticism and flying around and, high leapers. Adu Thiero, really high leaper, Big Z, just tall and lanky there in the paint. But they're not going to be banging with you inside the paint the way that Florida does. In fact, when you look at their rebounding, this is a team that is one of the worst rebounding teams in the conference, right? So from an offensive rebounding rate, they are 14th in the conference when you're on the road. When you look at overall, it's back that out and look at all games there in conference. They are 13th in offensive rebounding, 12th in offensive rebound or defensive rebounding percentage, right? So they're not a team that's going to be physical down low. They, again, win with their athleticism more so than their physicality. So that's something that Auburn needs to be able to exploit, is their ability to be physical inside the paint and potentially just play a little bit of bully ball inside of Neville Arena with Janai Broome and Chaney Johnson there, staying out of foul trouble, and Dylan Cardwell cleaning up the boards. That's where I expect Auburn to be able to have the advantage, is their ability to just muscle their way into the paint and be able to get additional possessions via offensive boards, because they're going up against a team that they should be able to, from a physicality standpoint, win in that way. I spoke about Vic Z, but he is going to be someone that's going to be tough to guard. Bruce Pearl talked about this in his pregame presser about how he is one of those guys, if he can see it, then he can make the shot from three, and he's 7'2", so it's not a lot of stuff that he can't see out there. Averaging 17.6 points per game on the season, and he is going to be someone who Auburn is going to have to pay special attention to because of the way that they've started to utilize him on the offensive end. He is during conference play, that's what he's averaging. He's only 10 points per game on the season, but during conference play, he's been averaging 17, 6 boards and 3 blocks per game, shooting 55.6% from the three-point line on three from in the last 5 games. So he's been blazing it out there from three, and they've been doing a good job of getting him available to make a lot of those shots. And again, just because of his length, it's difficult to guard. So that's going to be an interesting matchup with him, Dylan Cardwell, Janai Broome, whoever they run out there on. He's going to have a height advantage on him. Are they going to be able to get him going downhill rather than being able to get clean looks from three? That's going to be a focal point, I'm sure, for this Auburn team. When you look at the guard play, DJ Wagner is now playing the point guard position, again, with Bookie Fland down, and Wagner is a tough driver, athletic, downhill kind of guy. He, as well as Z, were on that Kentucky team that came in. Adu Thiero as well were on that Kentucky team that came into Neville Arena last year and beat Auburn. So they've had a taste of victory inside of Neville Arena before. It's going to be interesting to see, a year older, a year more experienced, how they handle that environment. They had no problem with the environment inside of Rupp Arena when they went in there for the Cal revenge game. But we'll see what they do to be able to handle the arena there inside, or the environment, inside of Neville Arena with a very different kind of team around them, but a lot of familiar faces. Again, a lot of that Kentucky team is over there with them in Arkansas. But Thiero is the leading scorer, and he is impactful for them as another guy who is like Wagner, downhill driver, athletic, can finish around the rim, jumps out of the gym. He's a guy that you have to be able to force him to really shoot away from the basket, because though he is super athletic, he is not the best shooter. In fact, he is only 26% from three on the season. He makes his money in the lane, going to the glass and being able to get second chance points in that way. His athleticism around the rim is what allows him to be able to score in the way that he does. So Auburn's going to have to really kind of dare him to shoot a little bit and keep him from getting downhill. I think some of the stuff that Arkansas likes to run, especially because you have Z out there pulling that big away from the rim, it makes it where those downhill drivers and Wagner and Thiero are able to get in there amongst the smaller players and be able to finish with their athleticism and their ability to make tough shots against contests on the interior. So it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to defend this, because you might see a little bit of zone, but you can't play too much because Z can step out and shoot, and they've got other guys that can shoot. I don't want to make it seem like he's the only person on this team that can shoot threes, right? Like on on the season, Z is scoring 45, or she's shooting 45%. Again, the last 5, he's been 55%. Then you've got Carter Knox, who is a knockdown shooter out there at 33.8%. And then Trevin Brazel, who has been up and down this season as far as his output offensively. So he's a guy who can step out and shoot it, but he's another lengthy, tall guy that can step out and shoot the three. In fact, he's 6'10". So when he steps away from the basket, he's someone that you have to be wary of. And again, I think that's what makes Tennessee a tough guard, is they have long, athletic guys that typically you want your bigs to play against so that you have the ability to rebound, but they're going to be stepping out and shooting. And then their downhill drivers, their guys that score around the paint, are going to be the guards. And so because you have to defend away from the bucket against these taller shooters, it makes it a little bit more difficult. Now, they've been struggling off and on throughout the SEC play with being consistent offensively, but they've shown up in some big moments so far this season. So looking forward to seeing how Auburn and their defensive intensity, one of the best three-point defensive teams in the nation, let alone in the SEC, does against a team that is focused more on their bigs being kind of the shooters from the outside, having to play away from the rim, and then still being able to dominate on the interior with the rebounding, because their guards, Adu Thiero, when you look at Wagner, those guys can go in there and they can go get rebounds, right? So you're going to have good boxing out from your guards in this game in order to control the paint the way that you want to. Again, we are in here talking about Arkansas versus Auburn. If you have not already shared this video, please do that. Go ahead and like the video. Today's show is brought to you by the good folks over at Underdog Fantasy. If you are someone who enjoys being able to play a little fantasy game when it comes to the basketball stuff, you can do that with Underdog. Use code RAPPORT and you will get, as a new customer, a deposit match of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you use code RAPPORT and you sign up. Just make sure you check out the availability of the games that are there for you in places like Alabama, where a lot of you are playing the Champions game, where it's more like a pool play as opposed to you playing versus yourself, and whatever you put as your entry, you win based upon the correct answers that you have, or the correct choices that you have there on the projection. So definitely go there, underdogfantasy.com. Use code RAPPORT to be able to get that deposit of $1,000 in bonus cash, up to $1,000 in bonus cash there from Underdog Fantasy. Appreciate them for being sponsors here of the War Report, right here inside of Lobtown, talking a little bit more Arkansas versus Auburn inside of Neville Arena. Again, the only loss so far to a tough Florida team. This is a game that I expect Auburn to be able to win, right? Like, there's no reason why they shouldn't win this game. Teams that have beat Auburn this season have had explosions from three. So they do have the ability for a shooter like Big Z to go off in this game and give you some hell from the three-point line. But, you're going to need to make 8 and above threes in the game. And then you're going to need to be able to get yourself some additional possessions, whether that be via the offensive boards or turning the team over. And the unfortunate reality for Arkansas is they're not great at either of those things. They can shoot the three with a couple of guys out there, and they absolutely can rebound from the guard position. So that's something Auburn needs to be wary of. But they're not a great rebounding team overall, and they're not a team that turns people over really well. So those are really the Achilles heels. Like, you have to have kind of a combination of 2 or all 3 of those things to be able to beat Auburn. And Arkansas just doesn't have it, right? They have the ability to make twos tough, but they don't score particularly efficiently inside of the paint, right? They are one of the worst offensive efficiency teams in the conference. And so Auburn just needs to be able to do what they do defensively and disrupt the action that Arkansas wants to do. Make it tough for the guys to get the catches, and then make the looks very difficult for them. That's going to be the recipe for success for Auburn, is just being physical at the catch point and not letting them run their action, and then making sure that you're securing the offensive glass. Again, Auburn's not been a team that's done well recently versus teams in offensive rebounding. So this is a game where they're going to need to be able to dominate in the post, in the paint with their offensive boards, because giving additional possessions to a team that has this level of athleticism is never going to be a good recipe for success for Auburn. So you need to be physical down there and make sure that you're doing what you need to do to dominate in the rebounding category in this one. I am interested to see how Janai Broome and Chaney Johnson deal with the length that Arkansas is going to pose for them. This is, again, from a physicality standpoint, I think both of them can go and they can bang in the paint. Adu Thiero is a taller guy, but he's going to likely be playing he might match up a little bit with Chaney Johnson, but he's not going to play Janai Broome. You're going to probably have Jonas Adu playing a lot against Janai Broome. And it's somebody who, honestly, Janai Broome did a fairly decent job when he was at Tennessee playing against Adu. He was able to do a pretty good job of being able to bang on the interior with him. So, you know, he should be able to go in, that is Janai Broome, and have a good game in there. But again, this is a team that is going to have a lot of length, and they're going to be likely going to be double teaming. You're going to see some double teams come over probably late against the shot as opposed to trying to get the ball out of his hands. But they will do a little bit of that, trying to shoot the passing lanes and forcing him to be a passer, not a scorer. But Janai Broome, going to be interesting to see how he is going to be able to play in this game against the length that's there when he's still dealing with some of that ankle stuff. And then Chaney Johnson, though he's a very physical guy, has struggled against teams that have a little bit more length that are playing in there. He's playing a lot more confidently away from the basket and becoming a downhill driver, though. So I think Chaney should still have an opportunity to go in there and be very effective in this one. Now, when you talk about Auburn from an offensive standpoint, of recent, it's been a lot of Denver Jones in these last two games. And this, again, I think is going to be a game where Denver Jones is going to have his opportunities to go out there and put some shots up. Wagner, he and Wagner are going to be matched up against one another. Wagner's kind of a dog defensively, and he's going to, try to make it very difficult for Denver to get into the offense and all that sort of thing. But I think when Denver turns away from being a passive or a passing guard into a more scoring-oriented guard, that makes him more dangerous in the offense. And I think that that's something that they're going to want him to do against Wagner this game, is really be Denver the scorer in this one, and then defensively do what he does to disrupt what Wagner wants to do as far as getting downhill and making it tough for him to get those downhill drives that he likes to get. So the matchup between Wagner and Denver Jones is going to be an interesting one. Now, Arkansas is a team that can go to the bench and they have some depth there, but I do wonder who on their team from that bench, from a guard standpoint, is going to be able to hold Tahad Pettiford down. I think this is a game where you see Tahad Pettiford able to, if he continues to be how he was in that Bama game and just determined to get downhill as opposed to settling for those threes that he can make. But he was a determined driver in that Bama game, especially late when he realized he had the opportunity to do that. Get downhill and finishing tough around the basket. Now he's going to have to finish amongst the trees, and he's a leaper, but he is a guy that I think will have some opportunities, particularly in the mid-range, of being able to get to like a 10, 12-foot jump shot pretty consistently versus this Arkansas team that really wants to funnel you to shot blockers. If he's going to be able to get downhill, get to that 10, 8-foot range floater, mid-range jump shot area, I think that a guy like he can get in there and really do some damage for Auburn in this game. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Tahad Pettiford from the mid-range, 5 to 6 shots there in the mid-range. I expect him to be able to have, will he be able to make those opportunities that are going to be presented to him? That's something I'm going to be looking forward to seeing. All right. That's it, man. I want to hear from you all. What are your thoughts on this game? Who do you think wins, number one? And give me some score predictions right down there in the comment section. As always, please share the content with somebody. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be in here during game time. We'll have our pregame situation. We will have our watch party for our members in this one, and post-game reaction. All of that coming for you all right around game time. So make sure you stay locked in right here with the War Report. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.